Hey everyone. So today I'm going to talk about splitting wood. It's not carpentry, but it's an offshoot of a trade when you think about it. The beauty of being a tradesman is we get to use tools, we get to understand how they work and how useful they can be to us. And using these tools can make your life that much more interesting, I think. So I burn firewood as a supplementary heat. I have a dump truck, and in my travels I'll see people taking down trees. I can pull right over, and 9 times out of 10 the people who are cutting the trees down are looking for a way to get rid of it. So they put it in my dump truck, I take it here in my driveway, drop it off, cut it up with a chainsaw into the 15-16 inch lengths, and then split it. And splitting it, it's a nice relaxing way to clear your mind, spend a nice afternoon just basically taking care of your brain, letting it go to rest for a little while, and using the skills that you know without even thinking about it, and enjoy yourself. And then you end up with all this firewood. So it's a win-win all the way around. The tool I'm going to be using today is a maul. Now, most people think of splitting wood, you think of an axe, but an axe is for taking a tree down, and the maul is for splitting it. It's basically a wedge with a somewhat dull tip to it. If it's sharp, it's going to stick into the material, so it doesn't have to be too sharp, and you want to just strike it just right, and you're going to cause this material to split apart. And what we're looking for when we do this is we're looking for advantages in the material. We're looking for natural cracks in the material to take advantage of to get it going. So stick around for a couple and I'll show you how it's done. All right. There's one of those cracks I'm talking about. All right, I'm going to try to split this. This is 32 inches in diameter. See that? 32 inches. What I've done is I found an advantage here. The splitting as this tree was drying. This is 15 inches in length, 32 in diameter. I've drilled 4 holes here. I'm going to try to use this as an advantage to split this. The reason I'm splitting this by hand is it's too heavy to put onto the splitter, so if I can get at least half this, cut this in half, it might be a little easier to handle. Alright, got a few different tools I'm going to be using here. This wedge, cone-shaped wedge, I'm going to use to put in the drill holes that I've made. And again, I'm trying to use this stress crack here. I'm going to start with a small sledgehammer to tap that in. See if I can get it to stay a little bit. Switch over to this heavier sledge. See if we can get her to stay. There we go. I'm going to start from the outside here, because if it's going to give way, it's going to give way on the outside edge. Picked up a splinter here already. Here we go. Now I can see it's cracking off this way already. This is going to shale off the end here. So I'm going to move in, see what happens if I take advantage of this crack here. Got a small split happening here. If I can get this way.
Now this tree was cut probably around, I think it was 6 months ago. Still a ton of water in here, a lot of moisture. See that red oak all the way through. So here's where I put the drill marks, and you can see they split right midway of those drill holes. So those definitely helped. And again, I took advantage of the split that was already happening naturally inside this tree. This is dead center of the tree. I can feel the arc of the pith where the tree started to grow right here. And this is half the tree right here. This gives you a good look at the makeup of the tree as well. This is the bark. This is what's called the sapwood. This wood has no structural value to it at all out here. This is where all the energy and moisture is brought up through the tree and distributed through the tree. The sapwood. And then you have the heartwood. And this is where you get your building material from. And this is the grain. You can see the grain running up the tree. This is what we talk about when we say ripping on the table saw with the grain, while cross-cutting with the miter saw or circular saw against the grain. So across the grain, a cross-cut, and a rip cut. We're ripping along the grain. And you can see as it splits how that happens, how that just rips apart. You can't split, I could not split the tree this way. In other words, I couldn't come in this way and try to split this tree that way. Not going to happen. It needs to happen along the grain from the top end in and just pull those layers apart. Pretty cool. And again, here's the dead center of the tree right here. This is the weakest part of the material as far as building material goes. If you can get lumber without this center involved, you have a much stabler piece of material. All right, next what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to half the halves. So I have one full circle. Now I have two halves. Now I'm going to split these halves and try to create 4 quarters. 4 quarter sections, which will be easily dropped into the splitter if I decide to use a mechanical splitter. I do like to use the hand splitter myself, being my hands and a maul, and split them, but a friend of mine has a splitter. He might be bringing it over, might make things go a little quicker. So I'm going to drill 1, 2, maybe 2 or 3 holes and see if I can't get this going. Let's see what happens. Alright, so splitting wood. Some people, if you're not in the know, you're going to think you use an axe to split wood. This is an axe, a small axe, but it's an axe. And you notice the shape, it has this thin wedge, and this is great for splitting small stuff, or removing branches, and things like that. But when you're splitting wood, you're going to want to use what's known as a maul. And basically, it's a wedge, just like this wedge that I was using earlier. You drive in with the sledgehammer. It's the same. It's basically the same thing. And what it does is just pushes the wood apart, forces it apart. So as far as it being sharp, it doesn't necessarily have to be. It's not sharp to the touch as it would be on an axe. An axe you want nice and sharp. See how that axe digs right into the board? Alright, so I'm going to look for that split, which is right here. Try to take advantage of that. There we go. Nice. Nice and nice. Now, there it is. That dead center that I talked about, and right here there's a little bit of a weakness. So I exploited that weakness with my tool, and we end up with a half. So now let's halve the halves, and we'll have 4 pieces. Alright. So we're going to halve the halves now. Here we go. Now, unlike the mall, where I was trying to one swipe split this, with the sledgehammer and wedge, I'm just trying to tap it in to drive it in and force this thing apart. I'm not going for that one swoop. There we go. Now, let's have the other half. Now this activity, let me tell you, it's good for the mind, it's good for the soul, and it's good for the body. Now, what's nice about this is I'm going to split this up even finer. I'm going to pile it, create a nice wood pile. I'm going to let that season for 6 months to a year, and then I'm going to burn that in my wood stove. A good thing. You know, when as a contractor and having a truck or a pickup truck or dump truck, the beauty of that is if you see this material around, you can put it in your truck, take it home, cut it up, and get yourself some free firewood. Although nothing is free, there's manual labor involved, but again, I find it to be relaxing. It's a nice way to spend an afternoon and fill up that wood pile. Nice. Alright, so there's what a couple hours of splitting does. Get you a nice pile. I'm going to stack that nice and neat. Alright, this is what makes it all worthwhile right here. There we go. Beautiful.